Okay, so we've got this function here. F has domain minus infinity 4 and is defined by f of x equals x squared minus 8x plus 7. And it says express f of x in the form, this form here, right? So if we look here closely, right, if we think about what's going on, we've got, this looks like completed the square format, doesn't it? Which you would have done earlier on, right, previous year. So if we write f of x out as it's given as a quadratic, okay, now if you recall, to complete the square you have to, okay, have a bracket squared and you halve that value, so that becomes minus 4, okay, when you halve it, and then you take away, you always take away whatever the square of this is. When you square 4 you get 16, and then of course you've got to add that 7 on, okay, that's how you complete the square. And then just simplify it, x minus 4 all squared, right? And then minus 16 plus 7, it becomes, of course, minus 9, right? So that's part A answered, right? And we've completed the square there, haven't we? We've got our answer and completed the square form. So then it says in part B, hence or otherwise find an expression for the inverse function of x, right? So of f of x, sorry, so f to the minus 1 of x. Now if we think about it, f of x is equal to this, isn't it? Okay. X squared minus 8x plus 7. But whenever we do the inverse, right, instead of writing f of x, of course we write it as y equals, don't we? Right? We write it in terms of y, because y represents f of x, okay, on the y-axis. Now, to get the inverse, we need to rearrange this to get x in terms of y. In other words, you want x equals. You want to get x equals, right? But it's awkward, isn't it, with this, in terms of getting x equals. It's not really going to be possible to do it, okay, to rearrange this. So what we do is we do this hence bit, it says here, we're going to use our answer from before, because this, of course, it can be rewritten as the completed square format, which is here, okay. And once you've got that, it becomes a lot easier, because you can now rearrange this. That minus 9 can be taken over, becomes plus 9, okay. And then, of course, you want to get x, remember, so the square you take over and you square root, which is the opposite. But don't forget, when you square root, when you do that, when you take the square over and square root, you have to put plus or minus there. So this becomes x minus 4. Now we need to determine whether it's a positive or a minus, right? And that all boils down to the domain. So when we look at the domain of f, right, the domain is minus infinity 4, right? That's what they said in the question. And what I would do is, I would now write this out, okay, the other way, writing up the domain by just looking at how spread it out it is here. Now, you could see here the values are going to be mainly negative, aren't they, for x, because it goes to minus infinity. It is going to be mainly negative, so really we should be thinking about taking the minus root, okay? But then you might be concerned that there are actually some positive values here, because it does go all the way up to 4. So you might not be too sure, okay? Because remember, we are going to get x equals. That's our objective, to get x equals, okay? And we need to see, is x going to be positive or negative? Well, here, we're not really sure, are we? X is mainly going to be negative, but it's going to be a little bit positive as well, isn't it? All the way to 4. But what's good is, in this format here, we haven't got x equals. It's x minus 4, isn't it? Equals this, okay? So that bit is important, because what we can do now with this is adapt this so to actually make it x minus 4. And if you make it x minus 4, of course you've got to take away 4 from x, so which means you take away 4 from this. 4 take away 4 is 0. And then you take away 4 as well from minus infinity, which doesn't do anything. Well, it stays minus infinity, isn't it? And then you could see then x minus 4 actually is all negative. It's always negative, isn't it? Okay, because it doesn't even get to 0. It's all negative. So we know now, you can say therefore take negative square root, okay? Because we've got this here, because of this. Okay, x minus 4 is negative, okay? So then we have the negative root is this. Okay, so we take the negative root, and then of course that minus 4 you take over the other side, so it becomes a plus 4, so I can write it like this. And there's your answer, right? You've got x now in terms of y, but don't forget you need to write it as a proper function, so it's the inverse function. F to the minus 1 will be 4 minus, it's in terms of x now, as is a proper function in its own right. So we change all the letters to x, and we've got that, and we've got our answer.